Welcome to Get to Know Your City. I'll be your host today. My name is Milt Van Natta, and we're here with Robert Nash, who is in the general election for mayor of Wisconsin Rapids against the incumbent Zach Brewink. And we're here today to talk with Bob about that general election on Tuesday, April the 5th. Bob, welcome. Welcome back.
Thanks.
What did you learn from the primary? I'll just share quickly with our viewers the vote totals. Zach Brewink had 1,118 votes. You had 809, and Marceau had 252. What do you take from that heading into the general election?
Well, I appreciate that 800 some people voted for me. I had to get through the primary first, and then, without discussing a lot of issues, and obviously there's, almost a split as to the current mayor and the other two candidates.
Yeah.
And so it shows me there's actually a division of some sort in the city as to what, as they perceive what they want out of their leader.
As we look forward to the general election, we don't know, as we do this interview, if the presidential primaries will still be in play or not. They might be, they might not be, but that, I would guess, if either party is in play, will push the voting up.
Right.
How will that impact your cause if there is a really high voter turnout?
Well, I would appreciate a higher voter turnout. The primary is usually a low voter turnout. I never really looked at, saw anything as to what percentage of the voters voted. But no, the more voters, I'd be happy with more voters. I think a lot of people that support me may not have voted in the primary, so hopefully they'll get out there and vote in the general election.
With just about 2,000 votes cast in the primary, do you have a ballpark, Bob, from running for city council a number of times over the years about how much we might expect it to increase in April?
Oh, I don't remember. I wouldn't remember. I can remember some of my vote totals, but those were just my district.
The district.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's just go right into issues then.
Sure.
We have just what amounts to a short half hour and a lot of issues. One of the things that really has come to the forefront since we got the chance to sit down and talk before the primary election is the whole crisis that's going on in Flint, Michigan, and their water supply issue has brought to mind to everyone the infrastructure of the place they live. Mm-hmm. What's the status, do you believe, of the important infrastructures in our city?
Well, I think we're in a different situation than what went on in Flint. I believe Flint was redoing some of their infrastructure, and they were taking water out of Lake Erie or whatever it was. Some lake where we don't do that. We use the groundwater, and we had the best water in the state. But the infrastructure we have to keep up. You don't want stuff leaching in. I think they had a problem with leaching in too. So I don't know what if they let their infrastructure go or what. But the infrastructure of the city and not just the streets above, but below are very important, and we need to keep investing in that and redoing that. And over the years, we've cut back sometimes, I think, and you just can't. I always the chip sealing. You just can't keep throwing the marbles down on the road, and eventually the road deteriorates, and you got to redo it.
So how would you evaluate the overall status of the city's infrastructure? Keeping up, falling behind?
I think we're falling behind. Especially with the maintenance of the roads, I think we could do a better job. But that comes to the point of I don't think we're putting our resources necessarily where we need to at the time. So.
Okay. So some resource reallocation would be appropriate?
Well, I always say, as a taxpayer, as long as my garbage is picked up, and when I flush the toilet, it goes away, and my water is good, I'm fine. And I want nice roads, and I want snow plowing. But those are the three basics. So we do a good job there, but I just think we could do a little better on our sidewalk maintenance and our road maintenance.
Okay. Let's dig into the whole economic development issue. Let's look at it, Bob, from a number of different angles. Let's start off with when our city is out there trying to win business to this community. That's got to be an incredibly competitive environment because there's so many communities that are in the same position that Wisconsin Rapids is, trying to win new business into their community. What is your sense of the reputation of Wisconsin Rapids when our city officials are out there trying to sell the city?
Well, and I don't know so much if it's the city officials, but at a few years back, I think it was the mindset of City Hall, possibly. I talked to people over the years. I golf a little bit, so I travel the state with a group of people that we golf, and you're from Wisconsin Rapids, and you run into a businessman or something that I was a guy from Wapaka. I can't remember his name right now, but he was looking to expand in Wisconsin Rapids. He came over and it was like so much red tape, and I think that's been streamlined by this mayor a little bit, but I think we could do better. But when you get that reputation, now there's a person who went back and he's in a bar full of people saying this, and that just goes on. So, and we're in this little hub. They blame it on the interstate. And like Marshfield with 10 now, that really helps them. And we have 54, but it goes nowhere. Once you get here, it goes and it's around. But we need to focus on, and I don't know, how to do this, but we need to focus and say, this is what we have, this is what we're going to offer. We need some incentives, and we need to push our Woodlands Business Park.
Okay. And can you share some specifics with me of how we can do that?
Well,
how we can make
well,
that attractive?
I don't know what, you have call centers in South Dakota in the middle of nowhere, just a call center to produce 90 jobs or something, it would be a plus, but I don't see anybody. We're taking our resources and we're putting them somewhere else. Now I guess they through Encourage and the Reggie, they hired some person, and I'm kind of interested to see where this is all going to go, because the city taxpayers are paying for part of that, I believe.
Okay, so am I hearing you right that we can make the city more business friendly?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
And again, going back to the heart of Wisconsin and Connie Loden when she was there, and we were making progress, and I hate to say it, but she went to a different area. She left, and she wasn't treated the best at the time, but she did a lot, and I still follow her career, and she's over in the Valley area, still doing development stuff, and when she was here, we used part of the hotel motel tax went to that area, plus $20,000 every year, and this mayor took that away, the hotel motel tax. So now they get the $20,000, and that's it. So I really don't know. And now with this Reggie, it's like we switched from there over to Encourage, and I don't know where we're going to get. And it's so we had 4 years of nothing there. Basically. So now they want to start up again, where it should have never stopped.
Okay. How do you feel about the stability of Verso in the paper industry in our city? We're still very reliant on it.
Mm-hmm.
How comfortable are you with
I'm
their
not
stability?
very comfortable at all. I spent 37 years in the paper mill,
Yeah.
in Nakusa, and I understand the operation, and as I said at the League of Women Voters thing, the pulp mill is a moneymaker. I don't see anything happening in the pulp mill, but the paper mill part of it, or the craft mill, but the paper mill part of it, I think they have 3 machines, and I think one is still a Stora Enso machine. And you can lump Buren in too. I mean, they're a different company, but I mean they're still they're downsizing, and everybody's downsizing. And when you shut a paper machine down, I went through it twice. Well, I went through the shutdown of the Port Mill too, but I mean I went through in Nakusa the shutdown of the paper machine. Well, when you do that, it affects the maintenance jobs get cut, the clerical jobs get cut,
Yeah.
the research jobs get cut, so it's not just those 16 people on that paper machine that get affected by it. It's a trickle down, and that's people out. So what I worry about over there is the paper end of it, because you can shut the paper end of it down and still run that craft mill and make money, and they sell pulp. We sell pulp in Nakusa. It's a moneymaker. It's not the paper end of it that necessarily pushes the business. You would think that, I don't know if you understand that. That's the simple answer.
Okay. So do we, as a city, then do we need to, at one hand, work with them to keep that business viable, while on the other hand being prepared in case something should change in their business?
Well, we need to work with them, but I don't know how much we can work with them. Obviously, they're a business, they're a company,
Yeah.
or what are they called? They're not even a company, really. I don't think they're a hedge fund thing, or
okay.
something
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah.
we need to work with them. But and what was the other part of the?
Well, what on one hand, you want to create an environment where they can stay open and be
Right.
viable in our community. You kind of have to have the emergency file too,
Right,
if something
right.
happens where
And we should
part
be
of that
very
business-
much aware, and we should be, and I understand the whole investing in the riverfront, but we need reserves in case something happens there. That's a big tax base, and as in Port Edwards, they go and they file and they don't have to pay the same amount of taxes, so and I worry about the mall, just not the paper mill, I worry about the mall, so we need somehow to get some different business, and everybody says that,
Yeah.
and I don't have the answer, and I've said for years to other groups, and we had meetings, and what Wisconsin Rapids really needs is a city manager, a city administrator. That's bottom line, and we're 10 years behind that. I worked with 5 different mayors, and or 4 different mayors, but I've paid attention for the last 5,
Yeah.
and none of them really know, and I'm not saying I do either, but that's why you have a city administrator, a city manager. You still would have your mayor, you could have a part-time mayor, however you wanted to work it. You cut the budget, it would change your whole aspect of City Hall. It would change your HR, your city attorney possibly. That's what we need, is somebody that runs an organization, not somebody. You had Vern Borth. Vern Virginski, who was a street department employee, basically. Jerry Bach was in the cranberry business. Mary Jo Carson was in the state commerce department,
Yeah.
and Zach's a small business owner now, and I'm a paper maker by part. None of us really know how to. You can sit and ask these questions. How do we get business here? I don't know, and I don't think anybody does, unless you have a city manager or a city administrator who's done it somewhere before. That's who you would look for. You would look for, say, up by Wausau, these little areas, Rib Mountain or whatever. That's what's making them run. They have a city manager that runs it.
Would that be your plan if you're elected in April, to make that major restructuring?
I would approach the city council in the near future to go to the voters and say, do you still want a full-time mayor, or do you want, you'd have to get the wording and discussion, and so it's clear and educate, But yeah, honestly, and there was other council members at the time, we discuss it, and we were supposed to have meetings on it, but they just never materialized. But to me, yes, that would be something I would push very hard.
Okay.
Because I think it's the right thing for Wisconsin Rapids. I've lived here for 56 years, and I've never left.
Yeah.
I've worked in Nakusa, but I've lived in Wisconsin Rapids my whole life. And I receive a lot of phone calls after the primary, and want to know what my view is and stuff like that, and it's like, we need to move forward. We just kind of sit in the same spot here all the time.
What were the things, Bob, that they told you? What rose to the top, the things that they were asking you
Well,
about?
they question about the river fund, the buying of property and so forth. And then I've, looked into it, and a lot of it is done in closed session, and so I don't know the specifics of what and why. And it's not that I'm not against it, but I don't understand the process that they used. And it's the city council's fault too. I mean, there's enough fault to go around here.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, you're buying businesses for the last year, and then in the fall, December, you decide to do a housing study. And now somehow that plays into this when they level the buildings and they're going to do a housing study. To me, it just seems like you would do the housing study first to see if you should actually go buy buildings. I mean, I understand they want to redo down there and make it look better, okay, but if the housing study comes back and says, well, there's no need for this kind of housing, condos or apartments or whatever they're going to be. I mean, we don't even know what they're looking at. They just say residential, office, and retail. Well, the office and the retail, we already know we have enough empty spaces for that, okay? So the residential part is the only part, but you would have, a year ago, before you started buying these places, if that was your vision, why wouldn't you do the study then? It's the same thing with the swimming pool. Last fall, they decide, well, we're not going to open a swimming pool. We're not going to pay $100,000 and some to open a swimming pool. Then in January, they pay $15,000 to do a study on aquatics. Well, wouldn't you do that a year ago or 2 years ago when you think, you're getting to the end? There's no planning, and it goes back to a city administrator, a city manager. Somebody needs to know when. And we have a new public works director, and I know Joe Terry a little bit. I've met him a few times over the years. He was in Port Edwards, and I think he's a good asset, and I think he's a level-headed person that I could work with very well. And I would put a lot of responsibility on him as far as some stuff.
Bob, the river is a great asset to this community. It's really always been the identity of the community as long as it's been here.
Good or bad.
Right. And how do you take advantage of that? How do you make it your best asset to develop and revitalize our community?
Okay, I grew up on 2nd Avenue right across from Lions Park, so I was just stone throw away from the river. We fished, we climbed on the trestle and whatever, but I mean, the river was dirty, there was stuff floating down the river, you'd reel your line in and they've cleaned up the river a lot. But there's not, to me, when they talk about some of this stuff, you have the dam here in Rapids and you have Centralia. There's not a lot of water there. There's more water on Nepco Lake or Wazeecha, really, as far as recreation, Okay. And sure, there's people out there boating and the stuff, but I just don't, it's a nice asset, but it's not like if you go above Buren and you can go all the way to Point. They have a chunk of water. You get below Nakusa, you can go all the way down into Petenwell, and stuff. And it's just, again, we're just in that middle area, where we don't have a lot of water to use, so I don't know, you go down and you sit by the river, it's a beautiful place. So my wife and I walk down to Ben Hansen, down to Lions Park and back a lot in the summer, and it's beautiful, but I don't know how you build off that, really. It's pretty well with the trails and everything. I think it's very nice now.
Is there then another area of our community we should focus our growth in that's more natural, if you will?
Yes, I believe.
Okay.
We did a study, and we've done studies over studies, and there was a study way, 15 years ago, shortly after I got on the city council, and the growth was out toward Buren on 54 and to the south, and so we got a grant, put the infrastructure in out there for that industrial park out on 64th, and then Buren, they built one now. They're both sitting empty, or basically empty, but you had the Bridgewater thing that was, at one time, and now you have the golf course thing to the south, and Nepco Lake, what they're doing out there with the building of the houses, and they were right, but now we're going to bring it back downtown for some reason. There's going to be a need for hotels and stuff on the south end of town with those golf courses if that goes, because people are going to come into Rapids. They aren't going to stay out there because there's not a lot out there. They're going to come in where the entertainment is, or the restaurant is, or the shopping. So
is the aging of our community linked to the economic condition of our community. I mean, I would guess that you and I, we're contemporaries, Bob. We're probably pretty close to the median age. We have an older
Oh, yeah.
community.
Yeah. Well, there's
Is there any way of changing that without really having robust economic growth?
I really don't think so. We're aging, but when they say we're just building senior housing and stuff like that, I don't look at it like that. If you look at the development, Clavine's development behind Walmart there off of 16th, it's duplexes and whatever, and I know people that bought in over there and they love it over there, you know. And then that's another thing. There was a issue with lights over there where the city said, we're not gonna put lights in for you, you know. So, you know, you work with a developer, creates a tax base for you, and then you say, oh, we're not gonna help you do anything. You know, that's wrong. I mean, you go to the Ridges years ago when Goskins bought the Ridges. Now you look at those properties out there, that's a big tax base, you know. I mean, that's a lot of taxes that the city gets. But we need to keep doing that. You know, if there's some way we could get Netco Lake tied in, you know, with your annexation laws and everything, now it's different. But there is areas out there that I think we could pursue rather than spending $1 million downtown.
And that's the preferable option.
I would think so, yeah. That's my, you know, and once again, you know, I'm not that I'm against downtown, I just don't know the plan, you know, and it seems a little backwards to me, you know, so.
Okay. I know you've addressed it in parts, Bob, as we've gone through our conversation today, but what's the vision? 10 years out, a generation out, 20 to 40 years out, because what we do today has an impact on that. What's the vision that you have for the city that you've grown up in, you've lived in, you love? What's the big vision?
The big vision would be that we would work with Buren to get development out there in their industrial park. It benefits us. I mean, it doesn't benefit our tax, you know, base. Or the Bridgewater thing, if we could have got that going, they're already tied into our wastewater, you know, and that's a money maker for the city. Rudolph tied into our wastewater, you know, it's a money maker. We need to work together, and if the development is out there, we need to do what we can do to work with them to help them get the development.
Okay. Well, what can you take us in, I mean, mind's eye of what the community looks like in 20 years?
We have a happy community then.
Okay.
I mean, it's hard to say in 10 years, you know. I mean, we have a drug problem evidently, but there's a drug problem in the country, you know, and so in 10 years we would have more business. We're not as reliable on the mill. Hopefully the paper mill is still here, and the mall is still thriving, but we also have other businesses out on A Street that are filled, where our business park has, you know, whether it's doctors' clinics or you know, medical or call centers, like I said, or anything. We have businesses out there. There's also a plan that's mapped out there for like a subdivision out there too. You know, that we could have a subdivision which would create tax base. You know, and I think the housing market is coming back. You know, now again, I don't know if people want to live down by the river in a condo or apartment. There's a group of people that do, and you know, and I don't know how much time we have, you know, but
we have time to develop that thought, certainly.
well, I'd like, you know, I mean, this is not a new idea here. Jerry Bach, when he was mayor and I was city council president, the parking lot on 1st and 2nd Avenue here on this side of the river, there was this, you know, let's build basically same thing, housing on top, some retail on the bottom. Well, we approached Stora Enso at the time. We met with 2 of the people from Stora Enso. And then, as always, the powers that be in the city of Wisconsin Rapids didn't want to lose their vision of the river from the park, the private park there. Same thing with the development in Buren, you know, the lawsuits, start lawsuits. So it never goes forward, you know, and somehow we need to get back past that, because right now you have at least 3 different groups of people that think they're in charge of everything in the city, and I think I can bring them all together.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that, Bob? How you can, because
No, you need to
there's-
sit down with everyone and say, hey, let's all play together. You know,
Okay.
why are you holding us back? And I don't think, you know, whether that was done by past mayors or the current mayor or not, but it needs to be done. You know, it's like, why do you do this? Why do you hold, you know, why do you buy a parking lot, you know, when you know somebody's trying to develop something? It doesn't make any sense to me, you know, and it embarrasses me, you know, that this is my city, that somebody's trying to do good, and then another group says, no, you're not going to do it. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. And if that can be explained to me by the powers that be, happy, you know, but I think I can bring these groups together and we can move forward.
you have already, within the course of our conversation, mentioned a big change, which would be a city administrator or manager with taking the mayor back from a full-time position. Is there any other changes in city structure or organization that are necessary to take us forward?
I think that's a necessary one, but yes, it'll affect City Hall, definitely. You know, it'll affect the third floor of City Hall, and people aren't gonna be happy when when you approach that. But I mean, if it, you know, I've always done, and I've always said over the years, I can look at everything, but I'm always gonna do what I think is best for the organization, okay? And that's part of my problem with the city council makeup right now is I don't think they're doing what's best for the organization, which means the taxpayers, okay? And so if we're gonna not be reliant on the mill, we need to get something going to direct us in a different direction, okay? And it's not gonna be a small business owner or a person from the paper mill or Cranberries or the State Department of Commerce or the old street department supervisor. It's just not gonna work anymore. I mean, it worked when the economy was booming and the paper mill, you know, everybody got out of the high school and went to the paper mill here or Port Edwards or Nakusa. It's not like that anymore, okay? And the downtown, they fight and fight and fight to revitalize downtown, and it was gone 15 years ago. You know that, you know, 10 years ago. It was gone, and I don't see it, there's, you know, it could be prettied up a little bit more, but I mean, I don't see it being a big factor in moving us forward.
And certainly not the center of revitalizing the
Right,
community.
exactly.
Okay. Well, Bob, you've touched on several things about your heart for the city, but as a final question, I just want to give you the opportunity to speak directly to me as the every man, every woman voter, and just tell us why you would appreciate our votes come Tuesday, April 5th.
Well, I've been involved in the city council. I was involved for 15 years, and in 2014, I chose not to run. Okay, I did 15 years, you know, civic duty. Everybody should do a little bit of civic duty, and I thought I did my share. Okay, we move on, and I stepped away, you know, and I didn't watch any meetings. I just needed I call it decompress, you know. And then I started, you know, seeing this process that was going on, and I started, you know, looking at it, and it's like, if I would have known that this is where we would be today, I would be running for alderperson again right now for my 10th term or whatever. I would have run in 2014. I would not have walked away. And that's part of the reason I'm getting back into it, is because, and people say, I could have run for alderperson. My district was up for election, you know, but no, I did 15 years. So if I'm gonna do something now, I want the mayor's job. You know, I wanna bring the city council forward and say, you're the ones that are in charge here. You know, do you realize what you've done over the last 2 years? And I don't think a few of them have. I don't think they have any idea. So I would hope you would vote for me.
To bring that experience from the city council to a new vision for the city.
Exactly. I mean, you know, I could sit here with you, Milt, for an hour and a half, and talk about, you know, the city clerk, how that all developed, and how they just kept bringing it back, you know, trying to change a few votes here, a few votes there, just to make it an appointed position. You know, well, the electric you know, they should have went to a referendum. You had 3 elections this year at least. You know, you could have went to a referendum just like they did in 2005 and find out if the public still wants it that way. Well, I think they still did. You know, at the time in 2005, I thought it should be appointed, but the electorate said no, you know, by a big margin, you know, and I don't think that's changed. And you know, some of the questions, you know, 100 and some cities in Wisconsin in Wisconsin have an appointed city clerk, you know, and 11 have elected. Well, my question is then right away, would have been, well, how many of those were appointed to begin with? You know, how many were changed? Well, I don't know. Well, you don't know, you know, so why are you using that argument if you don't know? You know, I mean, that's what I used to love about the city council. I used to love the debate. You know, I did. You know, I mean, and I stuck my foot in my mouth a few times. You know, but I mean, I love. You know, you give me the reason. You know, and if I agree with you, fine. You know, Lee Albright, I love the guy. You know, and we were on HR committee for many years together, and on the council. And I can't. How many times we'd walk out of there, and he'd come up to me and he'd say, "No hard feelings, no hard feelings." You know, and it's like, no, Lee. You know, I mean, we obviously have different ideas. You know. But when we walk out of here, it's done, you know, and that's what you need, is to be able to speak freely and get along with your council members. But I don't see any comment from the city council anymore. I see no discussion when the meetings that I started watching now. So,
thank you for your time, Bob.
Thank you.
Appreciate the conversation.
Yeah.
That's Bob Nash, candidate for mayor of Wisconsin Rapids. The general election is on Tuesday, April the 5th. And we encourage you to vote. This has been Get to Know Your City on River City's Community Access Media. I'm Milt Van Natta. Please be watching your listings for more conversations with people who are on that Tuesday, April 5th ballot. We'll see you again soon.